Protecting my peace for so long, a little too good, now I'm solo. Watching reruns of the same shows. Almost everybody on my no-show. Even with green lights I don't go. Never been sure, no I don't know. How does everybody has to let go of the ego? Don't go out nearly as much as I should. Barely know the way around my neighborhood. I'm ruminating, I feel no good. Not living life like I know I could. Like I know I could. Like I know I should. Like I know I could. Like I know I could. Like I could. If you would show me, yeah. If you would show me, yeah, yeah. If you would show me, yeah, yeah. I spent so much time daydreaming, so now I don't know how I'm feeling. Don't know who's the real me. Might need my help and I thought I needed. I can see it. Need more healing, more believing, less deceiving. I don't go out nearly as much as I should. Barely know the way around my neighborhood. I'm ruminating, I feel no good. Not living life like I know I could. Like I know I could. Like I know I should. Like I know I could. Like I know I could. Like I could. If you would show me, yeah. If you would show me, yeah, yeah. If you would show me, yeah, yeah. I might need therapy too. Help dilute all the bad news, 'cause I just can't deal with the lose-lose situations you have to go through. I think I need therapy now. Recycling all the same doubts. Heard it a million times, 'cause I tell myself all the same lies. I might need therapy too. Help dilute all the bad news, 'cause I just can't deal with the lose-lose situations you have to go through. dreams, living in my 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 dreams. I had a dream last night. Did everything I never do in real life. I stepped into a room, told everyone to be quiet, cause I had something to say. Blew everybody away, wear whatever I want. Dressed in a gown, everybody's like, wow, where you going? Nowhere special, just going to the store. I think I'd have it all, tell you I have even more. Picking a plate, being a plate, she is unruly. Never seen her like this, didn't think it existed, no truly. I'm getting away, she's not here to play, she'll get moody. But don't mistake this girl for being me, cause these are dream rules. This is someone else, I'm not myself, no. Cause these are dream rules. This is someone else, I'm not myself, no. Living in my dreams all night. Living in my dreams all night. Living in my dreams, living in my dreams, living in my dreams all night. Living in my dreams, living in my dreams. She can make all the problems disappear. She could tell you the things you wanna hear. She could read your mind and that she could believe all the little lies you tell yourself at night. Never get it wrong, it's always right. Waking the plate, being the plate, she is unruly. Never seen her like this, didn't think it existed, no truly. I'm getting away, she's not here to play, she'll get moody. But don't mistake this girl for being me, cause these are dream rules. This is someone else, I'm not myself, no. Cause these are dream rules. This is someone else, I'm not myself, no. Living in my dreams, 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 living We're in trances, going all to different places, different planets. Watch your aura pass me by, losing balance. What if we run out of time and second chances? Empty-handed. You like the fast life, you like to drive, get down and dirty, act like the bad guy. You want some love, you like when you feel like calling at midnight. You got the best of me, you got me losing sleep. I've been hopeful, baby, I was hoping maybe that you'd cross my path. I've been sinking lately, and it's hard to move. Think I'm stuck on you. We're in trances, going off to different places, different planets. Watch your aura pass me by, losing balance. What if we run out of time and second chances? Empty-handed. I wonder, would you love me better if I go? I'm not home. I wonder, can we trust the stars above to let us know? I'm not home. I wanna know, can we trust the stars above to let us know how to grow? Whoa.
Peace.
We're in trances, going off to different places, different planets. Watch your
Peace, everyone. Thank you all for returning as we are exploring this so-called Black History Month 2024. If you haven't already, make sure that you like, share to your favorite social media platforms, and subscribe. Once you subscribe, make sure you hit that notification bell so that you'll always receive notifications when we live stream or when we upload. Again, honors to each and every one of you all who come out and show your support. I'm going to put the link in the chat. If anyone wants to come up on the stage, you can do so. Honors to His Majesty the Magnificent El. Amen. Ahava Islam. We're going to get into the topic of the real Union slaves on today. The real Union slaves. Many of us don't know what they look like because we've been told that the slaves look like us. We've been told that the slaves was freed by way of Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation. We're going to definitely get into who these real Union slaves were and still are today. You know, just because you're born here does not make you an American. Because only Americans can own land in America. So here we are. This is one of, or this is, I should say, this is a picture of one of the slaves. You know, they want to call them prisoners of war. But we're going to show and prove today that this is what the majority of most of these slaves look like. A lot of these slaves endured this type of treatment, especially from the slave owners in the northern states, because the Great Rebellion had nothing to do with enslaved Americans. Had nothing to do with slaves, so-called blacks. Right? It had everything to do with unfair treatment inhumane treatment, had a lot to do with stealing resources, subjugating people who pretty much owned everything. That's what what they call the Civil War was about. Again, there was never a civil war there was no war proclaimed. Congress never actually declared a war. Neither did the Union president at that time. Never. So they say that this is one of the so-called POWs. Here's another one. Emaciated prisoner of war from Belle Isles, Richmond. From Belle Isles, Richmond. But I'm going to show you this is what they've been doing. This is not like this right here. Do you know how long you have to go without any nutrition in the body for the body to begin to dispose itself like this? Dispose itself like this? You're talking about a long time. Long time. So here we go. Who are these men? This is from the nationalparks.gov. Who are these men? See who these men are. Let me blow this up a little bit more. Right, it says, I'm going to start right here. Although some of these images are 1865 photographs of Andersonville survivors, many of these famous photographs are actually of recently released prisoners from Richmond in early 1864. After the prisoner exchange cartel broke down, large numbers of Union soldiers captured in late 1863 were crammed into warehouses around Richmond and on Belle Isles. Really crammed into just any type of warehouse. Are you talking about a prisoner? You're just gonna put a prisoner in just any warehouse? This house and wherever? Come on, y'all. You gotta understand that all of these bodies come with a price. See, slavery is what they really don't tell us is it's always been about the money, the capital. This is called human capital. So you're just gonna put human capital just anywhere? Crammed into warehouses around Richmond and on Belle Isles? This rapid influx overwhelmed the Confederacy's ability to feed them or provide medical care. Really? Really? See, because the Confederacy is the real government, they gotta always make it seem like the Confederacy was insufficient. Says the Confederate Army quickly began to search for a replacement prison, and Andersonville was selected in the fall of 1863. Construction in the new prison began January 1864, and the first prisoners arrived from Richmond in February. These transfers continued throughout the spring of 1864. Okay, so if these prisoners, it says, let's go back, right? It says many of these famous photographs are actually recently released prisoners from Richmond in 1864. In early 1864. So this prisoner was released in early 1864. However, the prison wasn't built until January 1864. Wouldn't that be early 1864? And they didn't get their first prisoners until February of 1864. So there's no way possible that this slave right here could have been a prisoner that the Confederates held for any time. Says these transfers continued through the spring of 1864. By April 1864, most of the enlisted prisoners remaining in Richmond were those too sick to move. Many of these sick prisoners were paroled and turned over to Union hospitals for medical care. Come on. None of this makes sense. You know what happens when you lie and you lie, but then you begin to realize that the lie is not making sense? None of it makes sense. Greetings, Village Aura 9. Thank you for coming on and participating. Says in early May 1864, the Congressional Committee on the Conduct of the War held a series of hearings investigating the treatment of prisoners of war in Richmond. Many of the worst cases of these returned prisoners were photographed, and these images were widely distributed as propaganda. Again, like I'm telling you, this is what most of the slaves in the North had to endure. The committee reported that though nearly all the patients now in the Naval Academy Hospital at Annapolis and in the West Hospital in Baltimore have been under the kindest and most intelligent treatment for about 3 weeks past, and many of them for a greater length of time, still they present literally the appearance of living skeletons, many of them being nothing but skin and bone. Some of them are maimed for life, having been frozen while exposed to the inclemency of the winter season on Belle Isles. Finding it impossible to describe in words the deplorable condition of these returned prisoners have caused photographs to be taken of a number of them and a fair sample to be lithographed and appended to this report, that their condition may be known by all who examine it. You see, when you want something to look a certain way, right, you're going to create what they just said, propaganda. Today, after 150 years, our memory of Civil War prisoners is dominated by Andersonville, and we often assume that all of these photos are of Andersonville survivors. But for Americans in early 1864, it was Richmond that we seen as the worst of the prison sites. These photographs of what's that? These photographs of almost emaciated prisoners from Richmond remind us of that suffering in Civil War prisons was not limited to Andersonville. starvation, diarrhea, suffering, and death-haunted prisoners regardless of when they were captured or where they were held. Photos like these are nearly universal to the prisoner of war experience throughout our history. These aren't really photos of prisoners of war. These are the real Union slaves. These have always been the real Union slaves. This is what many of the slaves endured. See, this is not something that was just happening in 1864. No, this has been happening hundreds of years prior. Experts unearthed one of the first colonists, a teen with a broken leg. Adolescent boy could have been aboard one of the first ships to land in Maryland in March 1634. He was dumped in his grave with little ceremony. He had no coffin, no burial shroud, and probably no family to mourn him. He had a broken right leg and perhaps damaged ribs. His right arm was pulled awkwardly across his chest, and his left hand was clenched in a fist. He had a square jaw, stood about 5 feet tall, and was around 15 years old. And when experts opened his nearly 400-year-old grave last week, they realized they were looking at one of Maryland's first European settlers and one of the first colonists in what will become the United States. One of the first European settlers. Because it's been going on. They've been doing this. This did not just start. When we go to the look into the word slave, we go to the etymology of slave. We're able to see who these slaves really are. Right? It says slaves or slave. Person who is the chattel or property of another. And directly from medieval Latin, sclavis, slave. Originally Slav. So used in the secondary sense because of the many Slavs sold into slavery by conquering peoples. Slav. One of the people who inhabit most of Eastern Europe. Slavs are Europeans. Didn't we just read that in the newspaper Washington Post article? Right, it says, and when experts opened his nearly 400-year-old grave last week, they realized they were looking at one of Maryland's first European settlers. No, one of Maryland's first European slaves. And one of the first colonists in what will become the United States. It said that at one point in time they were the most prized of human goods. I didn't say it. They said it. I'm not making it up. The forgotten white slaves and the ignored history of slavery worldwide. The story of slavery is more complicated than you would have been told. Did you know that up to 1,250,000 white slaves were shipped to North Africa? Did you know a fifth of the United States government's 1797 budget was paid in tribute to North African Muslim nations to free and stop enslaving Americans? Were they enslaving Americans or were they enslaving Europeans? Make that make sense. Did you know the Ottoman Empire enslaved millions of Europeans? Did you know that slavery was so common in ancient Britain that the Anglo-Saxon word for Briton was used interchangeably for slave? Did you know owning and selling slaves was universal? The story of slavery is more complex than we realize, and we should readdress our relationship to history and its legacy by acquainting ourselves with the facts. Right? We've seen this before. Right here it says, the oldest written history of slaves can be shortly summarized. Myriads of slave hunts and the enthrallment of entire peoples. The Slavs was the most prized of human goods. Again, this is human capital. This is a slave. This is a Slav. It says, with increased strength outside his marshy land of origin, hardened to the utmost against all privation, industrious, content with little, good-humored, and cheerful, he filled the slave markets. He filled the slave markets of Europe, Asia, and Africa. It must be remembered that for every Slavonic slave who reached his destination, at least 10 succumbed to inhumane treatment during transportation and to the heat of the climate. Indeed, Ibrahim, 10th century himself, in all probability a slave dealer, says, and the Slavs cannot travel to Lombardy on account of the heat, which is fatal to them, hence their high price. See, a lot of them couldn't go to what they call like the Middle East today because of the heat. Right? A lot of them couldn't go and certain parts of what they call the continent of Africa today. So this is why you see a lot of them in what is called North Africa. But guess what? A lot of them could come to America because the weather conditions in America is way more favorable. Way more favorable until you start getting down south. And that's something different. But up north in the Midwest and even out west, once you start coming down, the weather it just doesn't make any logical sense. It's too harsh of a boat ride, and it's too harsh on the body to withstand working outside in the weather conditions where it's extremely hot. Yeah, so the original slaves are the Slavs. They're Slavonic. And these are Europeans, and these Europeans are the ones who came over here. I guess what was it? 1,250,000 was the amount? 1,250,000? That's a lot of human capital, a lot of human cargo. Wow. Says Travis Parno, Director of Research and Collections for Historic St. Mary City, said the young man could well have been aboard the Ark or the Dove, the ships that brought the first permanent white settlers to the shores of St. Mary's River in March 1634. Parno called the discovery monumental. This is someone who was here in the first years of the settlement, the vanguard of a colonial invasion. He said last week, standing by the site near the old colonial capital of Maryland, about 70 miles southeast of Washington. Someone nobody wrote about. It's a period that we have such little documentation on. Really? Do we really have a little documentation, or are we just not looking for it? I found a lot of documentation. To have the physical remains of a person who was part of that venture, who lived here briefly and died here early, is crucial. Parno said, you wonder what he came over for, the hopes that he had, the dreams that he had. No, he came over because he was a slave. The discovery comes 2 years after Parno announced that he and his archaeologists had discovered the outline of a lost fort the colonists built after their arrival. It is the earliest colonial archaeological site in Maryland, he said, and adds to researchers' understanding of European colonization in the Chesapeake region and its effects on indigenous residents. I mean, come on, y'all. Didn't we just read that? But for Americans in early 1864, it was Richmond. It was Richmond that we see as the worst of the so-called prison sites. And we talking about like 200 years apart, and they still treating their slaves like this. Daggone. They're still treating their slaves like this. says bones of ancient native dogs were found at Jamestown. Colonists may have eaten them. That's awkward, ain't it? Ain't they still eating dog today? Cat? You better stay out those restaurants. The teenager's burial was found just outside the location of the fort's walls. The fort's walls. I think it tells a fascinating story of how young people helped settle these colonies. Like, did they have a choice? Did they really have a choice? We're talking about slaves. Y'all see, this is more propaganda. Instead of them just keeping it real and saying, look, this is what our ancestors actually went through. This is what we have gone through for hundreds of years. We've always been the real slave, right? They will put a slave narrative and a slave story on us. And in a hot second. Wow. This is, they were white and they were slaves. The untold history of the enslavement of whites in early America. Michael A. Hoffman. Torture and murder of white slaves. White slaves were punished with merciless whippings and beatings. The records of Middlesex County, Virginia. Daggone Virginia. Well, they love Virginia, don't they? County, Virginia. Relate how a slave master confessed that he hath most uncivilly and inhumanely beaten a white female with great knotted whipcord, so that the poor servant is a lamentable spectacle to behold. Whippings were commonplace, as were iron collars and chains. As were iron collars and chains. So they'll do stuff like this. And we've seen this a lot. I'm pretty sure most of us have seen this one. Most of us have seen this one. Wilson, branded slave from New Orleans, 1863. On January 30th, 1864, to fan the anti-slavery cause and promote the slave abolitionist photographs, Harper's Weekly again. Harper's Weekly was created for propaganda. Harper's Weekly Journal is the beginning of the misinformation, the indoctrination, and the miseducation of us. Harper's Weekly published this Carte de Visite and 3 others as wood engravings. The newspaper also included stern bibliographies of the emancipated slaves. The editors noted that Wilson Chin was about 60 years old. His former master, Volsey B. Marmillion, a sugar planter near New Orleans, was accustomed to brand his Negroes, and Wilson has on his forehead the letters VBM. So they'll put this out here to really make us believe that this is what happened to us. This is what we went through. Look how healthy this man is. This is a healthy man compared to this man right here. I mean, that's a huge difference. I mean, if Wilson is a slave, he's been a really well taken care of slave in the South. Ain't that where they said the slavery was at, in the South? I mean, Islam Cold Mountain Bulldogs. I mean, ain't this what they've been teaching us? You're seeing it. I don't know how many times I've seen this picture so far since so-called Black History Month came up. How many discussions and panels and, you know, the same old, the same stuff they do every year to try to emotionally trigger us. And we buy it. We believe this is real. But this is the real deal right here. This is the real slave right here. Said, as were iron collars and chains. A case in the county from 1655 relates how a white slave was fastened to a lock with a chain to it by its master and tied to a shop door and whipped till he was very bloody. The beating and whipping of white slaves resulted in so many being beaten to death that in 1662 the Virginia Assembly passed a law prohibiting the private burial of white slaves because such burial helped to conceal their murders and encourage further atrocities against other white slaves. They had to pass a bill. That's how bad it is. They had to pass legislation to stop it. It's crazy. And that's real. We see it. This is real. I'm gonna put the link in the chat if anyone wants to come on stage. You can. About to get up out of here. I'm gonna finish reading a little bit more of this. It says, a grievously ill white slave was forced by his master to dig his own grave. Since there was little likelihood that the master would obtain any more labor from him. Told you they could only have them for about 2 years. And then that was it. That's why they didn't really, feed them, clothe them, give them, treat them human, like they were human. Because they will only last for 2 years working. This is why we really begin to mix. So that they can live longer. That's what the whole Great Rebellion was about. It was the admixture of children who was manumitted, so they didn't have to be a slave all their life because their mother was a Slav, but they still couldn't own land. They still was treated like a child of a Slav. It says the white slave's owner made him sick and languishing as he was, dig his own grave, in which he was laid a few days afterwards. The others, being too busy to dig it, having their hands full in attending to tobacco. In New England, Nicholas Weeks and his wife deliberately cut off the toes of their white slave, who subsequently died. Marmaduke Pierce in Massachusetts severely beat a white slave boy with a rod and finally beat him to death. Pierce was not punished for the murder. How many so-called white people you know with the name Marmaduke? Okay, we're going to keep reading. In 1655, in the Plymouth colony, a master named Mr. Latham starved his 14-year-old white boy slave, beat him, and left him to die. Outdoors in sub-zero temperatures, the dead boy's body showed the markings of repeated beatings, and his hands and feet were frozen solid. Colonial records are full of deaths by beating, starvation, and exposure of white slaves, in addition to tragic accounts such as the one of the New Jersey white slave boy who drowned himself rather than continue to face the unmerciful beatings of his master. 1731 is still going on. We started out in the 1600s, didn't we? It's 1731 still going on. Henry Smith beat to death an elderly white slave and raped 2 of his female white slaves in Virginia. John Dandy beat to death his white slave boy whose black and blue body was found floating down a creek in Maryland. Hope Alvey beat his white slave girl, Alice Sanford, to death in 1663. She was reported to have been beaten to a jelly. Joseph Frencher beat his white slave Jeffrey Hagman to death in 1664. John Grammer ordered his plantation overseer to beat his white slave 100 times with a cat o' nine tails. What is a cat o' nine tails? Let's see. Wow. with the cattle's 9 tails. The white slave died of his wounds. The overseer, rather than expressing regret at the death of inflicted, stated, I could have given him 10 times more. 1,000. 1,000 whips. There are thousands of cases in the colonial archives of inhumane mistreatment, cruelty, beatings, and the entire litany of Uncle Tom's Cabin horrors administered to hapless white slaves. Uncle Tom's Cabin was about so-called white slaves. They don't tell us that, though. They ain't never tell us that. Uncle Tom's Cabin. More propaganda. But instead of telling the truth, they try to make it seem like it was us who were the slaves. Look. They'll put our pictures and everything on the auction block. This was not real. This was satire. See, because we see them creating legislation. They said they created legislation to stop this. Right? In 1662, the Virginia Assembly passed a law prohibiting the private burial of white slaves because such burial helped to conceal their murders and encouraged further atrocities against other white slaves. They couldn't even stop it. They were just like, look, you can't have any private burials. That's all. It was still going on in 1731. When a little boy in New Jersey drowned himself. Like, forget that. I'm tired of this. I'd rather die before I have to live the rest of my life like this. This slave got whipped 100 times, and the master was like, look, I could have gave him 10 times more. 1,000 lashes from a whip? The horrors of Uncle Tom's Cabin. They didn't make Uncle Tom's Cabin seem like we were the ones that was going through the slavery. Uncle Tom's Cabin tells the story of Uncle Tom, an enslaved person depicted as saintly and dignified, noble and steadfast in his beliefs, while being transported by boat to auction in New Orleans. Tom saves the life of little Eva, an angelic and forgiving young girl whose grateful father then purchased Tom. Eva and Tom soon became great friends, always felt Eva's health begins to decline rapidly. And on her deathbed, she asks her father to free all his enslaved people. He makes plans to do so, but it's then killed. And the brutal Simon Legree, Tom's new owner, has Tom whipped to death after he refuses to divulge the whereabouts of certain escaped slaves. What's crazy is they told us that this story was about us being slaves. Wow. Yeah, these are the real slaves. These have always been the real slaves. They got their freedom in 1910. With the Mann Act, aka the anti-white Trafficking Act. Thank you all for coming and rocking out with us today. If anyone would like more information, you can always reach us at 877-808-2477 extension 103. Or you can reach us on our website at www.mstahohr805.co. We'll be putting up another video, as we'll be posting videos daily so that we can get more education and unravel these falsehoods about the so-called Black History Month and the so-called Black history. With that, I want to say peace and love to you all.